Pigskin Preview. I'm Monk Blevins, this is Logan Wright, and we're coming to you to talk a little high school football. Logan, tell us about our magazine a little bit.
Well, we actually have our 2015 issue of the Mountain Valley News magazine. It's got all the high school teams from local and around here, and if you know anybody that's playing or you just love high school football, it's a great thing to have. It's $10 or it's $12, and you get a subscription up until February for Mountain Valley News.
Absolutely. I tell you, that's a great magazine, and a lot of people coming in this week and picking that magazine up. And, I'm excited about our magazine, but I'm excited about high school football. We're in week 2. What did you take out of week 1? Was there any surprises or?
Week 1 was crazy. There were some upsets. Like we talked about Plainview playing Glencoe. I mean, I don't think anybody predicted that game going like it did. And it started out, they went 3 and out. Plainview won the toss, and then there was a blocked punt, and Glencoe recovered it, and Glencoe never looked back throughout the whole night.
Yeah. The one thing that and it's not a surprise to me, but I tell you what, the Eider Hornets, and I've talked about them a lot, and Coach Tinker, man, what a great job he's done there, but, man, they were clicking on all cylinders. Of course, they were playing Valley Head. Valley Head is down a little bit this year, but I'm going to tell you what, they put 40 points up by halftime, and I tell you, this Eider team is a team to watch for this year. I think they've got a chance to do some damage, and again, Coach Tinker has done a great job. So I think that's one of the teams that, I guess that surprised me most out of last week. But let's go ahead and start talking about this week. Our first game we're going to be talking about is Sylvania and Pisgah. Sylvania comes in after a tough loss last week. What a football game that was. They were tied 35-35 with about 8 minutes left in the ball game. And, can't say enough about the way they played. Caleb Roebuck rushed for 225 yards. And, man, that's a great night, and I congratulate him on his, the good night he had. But, with 8 minutes left in the game, Sylvania is driving in for the go-ahead touchdown, and they fumbled the ball. And it's just one of those nights that, things like that happen. They get the ball. Sardis takes the ball, goes down, and goes ahead of them. Well, Sylvania then gets the ball back, and they throw an interception. They get the ball back, and they throw another interception. So it was just one of those nights when Sylvania, man, they played great, but it just at the end of the game, they kind of fell apart, and, a couple of turnovers and a couple of things happened to them. But, this Sylvania team jumped out on Sardis 21-7. So, one of the things I think we can take from that is this Sylvania team is going to improve. They're the turnovers and things like that, they'll correct those. And, I look for a good game out of Sylvania this week. What do you think about that?
Well, it's one of those, they just had to finish. I mean, they had the foot on the pedal, and they were there. They were on the goal line. And I actually talked to one of the coaches, and Roebuck was talking to the coach, and they asked him what happened, and he said, well, I had the ball, I saw the end zone, and the next thing I know, I was in the end zone, and I didn't have the ball. So that's just one of those things. They're going to have to get over this game. It's a tough loss, but it's next week.
Yeah, they've got a chance, I think, this week. Again, they're playing Pisgah. Man, Pisgah had a tough ball game. They played a great Cleveland team. This Cleveland's got a quarterback, man, that can get after it, and I think he had about 240 all-purpose yards last Friday night, and that was a tough loss for them. But this Pisgah team, they've got some players. They've got a chance of making some noise. They had a couple of guys that run the ball well. I think some of the players, Aaron Young and Landon Hawkins, both had a decent night running the football. But this kid from Cleveland, his name is Peyton Gillen. He is a real player, and it was just a tough night for Pisgah. But now they get back into this week and facing a Sylvania team, and that's going to be a great game. That's probably one of the better games of the week in my opinion. Our next game we've got is Jacksonville at Crossville. What do you think about this one?
I've heard a lot of good things about this Jacksonville team, and it's going to be very hard for Crossville to stop this offense. I heard this offense is shooting on all cylinders. They're going to put up all kind of yardage and points. I see this game being an offensive battle. Crossville's going to have to hang in there with them.
Yeah. Crossville played Douglas last week, and, I really thought this Crossville team would open up with a win against Douglas, but they lost that game 20-7. You know, Gannon Pointer was the quarterback, and he had a great game. He passed for 204 yards. He was 13 for 28. Addison Demuke had 6 catches for 89 yards. So they can throw the ball. I think they're just, with the Crossville, man, it's been so long since they've won a football game, and just knowing how to win again. I think, if they can ever get one behind them, then I think they got a chance of winning some games. But it's going to be a tough game for them this week against Jacksonville. They're always very strong, and so I'm anxious to see how Crossville comes back out this week after a loss last week. Our next game is Collinsville at West End. Collinsville comes in. I tell you what, man. I was excited about this Collinsville team, and of course, we talk about Ernie Willingham and how he sandbags. Man, they had a chance in this football game. They had 6 fumbles. They lost 3 of them. They had about 75 yards in penalties. But the thing that was most impressive to me was their 10th grade quarterback, Grant Jones. He was 4 for 7 for 42 yards. They had 3 running backs over 100 yards. Dallas Reed rushed for 134 yards on 12 carries. Tyler Blakely had 166 yards on 12 carries. And Trenton Nash had 125 yards on 15 carries. They had about 500 total yards. And but just listening to Ernie talk and about the game, you can't have those turnovers. Mm-hmm. To be able, you got to hang on to the football, and I think that was one of the things that hurt Collinsville against Cedar Bluff. They lost the game 33-26, had all kinds of chances to win it, and I think again, just like with the Sylvania game, I think you'll see they can stop those turnovers, and this Collinsville team will improve as the year goes on. Next game, we got Galesville at Ider. What do you think about this game?
I think everybody's picking Ider. The way they've been rolling, they've been improving week to week. You look at last season, they improved every single week, and they're still on that agenda. They're getting better. Coach Tinker is making these guys improve. They're getting back to Ider football. Absolutely.
Ider jumped on Valley Head. It was 40-8 at halftime. I'll tell you, he has got this team clicking. As I said early in the show, I think this was probably the surprise team for me of this week. I tell you what, they came out ready to play football. Justin Palmer is the running back. He had 4 touchdowns against Valley Head. And talking about Valley Head, the Valley Head Tigers, they're young. They don't have a lot of players, but Coach Graham has done a great job, and they've got a kid named Devin Leaps. Devin Leaps. He had a 31-yard touchdown, and he had a 78-yard touchdown. So this Valley Head team, you'll see them improving each week too. But, I tell you what, Ider, man, they're tough. And I think, it's going to be a long night, I'm thinking, for Galesville against these Ider Hornets. Our next game is Geraldine versus New Hope. Geraldine comes in after a tough loss against Fife. I think one of New Hope has got a great quarterback. Of course, they lost a tough game to Fort Payne, which, I think Fort Payne is probably one of the better teams in their area this year. So I know that was a tough loss for New Hope, but I think New Hope has a chance of making noise in our region. Geraldine, well, I'll tell you what, they were impressive against Fife. They had one kid, Stephen Hood, who run for 165 yards. And so what do you think about this game? I tell you what, I'm excited about this football game.
Talk about New Hope. Their quarterback, I believe his last name is Browner. Yes. This kid is an athlete. I know he started at least since the 10th grade. He's got a couple years under his belt. He's starting to get comfortable in the pocket. And I know they lost to Fort Payne, but Fort Payne is one of the better teams from around here, and there's no shame in losing to a Fort Payne team.
There are going to be a lot of people losing to Fort Payne. So.
Geraldine, name I think we left out was Ivan Benitez. I mean, this kid's a house. He is massive, and all he does is push people around. And that's definitely going to help Geraldine this year. Yeah. And they have more than one running back that can be an asset to this team. I believe their rushing game is just going to continue to get better and better this year. I think their passing game is going to need a little work, but as far as running the ball goes, I say they run it right behind Big Ivan, and they're going to have no trouble all year long.
Absolutely. That's going to be a great game. Again, that's one of the better games of this week, and it's a big region game for both Geraldine and New Hope, and the winner of this game probably kind of have a lead in this region, and that's going to be a great football game. You know, our next game, we got Coosa Christian. They're coming to Valley Head. Again, Valley Head, you know, they played Ider last week, and it was a tough loss, but, you know, they did have some bright moments. Devin Leaps looks like it's going to be a great running back for him. He, you know, again, he had a 31-yard touchdown. He had a 78-yard touchdown. They got their quarterback. He's young, but he'll improve as the season goes on. So, what do you think about this game? What do you think about Coosa Christian coming to Valley Head this week?
I think the sooner that Valley Head starts winning games, the more they're going to get used to it, and the more games they're going to win. Program sort of struggled last year, but I mean they lost to a tough Ider team. But like you said, there were some positive points in there. There's something they can take out of there. There's something to improve on.
Absolutely. You know, Coach Graham he is a great guy, and we've talked about this. I think he's a great coach, and he's a great person. And he'll build this team, and they'll get better each week. You'll see them improve each week, and you know, I think they've got a great opportunity this week to pull out a win. And man, there's nothing like getting that first win. You know, you get that first win, and you build a little momentum, and everybody gets excited, and you never know what'll happen once you get that first win behind you. You never know what's going to take place. Next game we've talked about is going to be Fort Payne at Arab. You know, this Fort Payne team. Man, I'm impressed with them. You know, last year they were just, you know, they had so many injuries. You know, their quarterback was hurt. Their best running back was hurt. One of their best linemen was hurt. Their linebacker got hurt during the season, and you know, and they still finished the season at 7-3, even with all those injuries. Well, this year they've got those guys back. You know, Desmond Turner will be one of the best running backs we'll see this year. He rushed for 135 yards against New Hope last week and scored 3 touchdowns. You know, they had 2 guys that picked off, you know, Adam Browner's passes. Tyler Berry intercepted a pass and ran it 44 yards for a touchdown. Will Anderson picked off one, ran it back 27 yards for a touchdown. So this Fort Payne team, they're going to be good offensively. They're going to be good defensively, and I tell you, I look for Fort Payne to go a long way. What's your thoughts on this game?
One word that comes to mind when we talk about Fort Payne: speed. This is one of the fastest teams I've seen in a while. This team has been running over everybody. They ran over New Hope, had 3 touchdowns in a game. That's unheard of. Those are incredible stats, and I believe he's going to add to these stats each game.
Oh, absolutely.
They'll go. I believe they'll make a deep playoff run. And anything less than that, I believe a lot of people are going to be disappointed.
Yeah, you know, I think the key again is if they can stay healthy. You know, if Desmond Turner stays healthy, man, he'll have a great season. The other guy and I think he might have got injured. I know I heard him say he had to come off the field. Is Jared Hogan, and a big old kid. He was hurt all last year, had a knee injury. And about midway through the third quarter, he did come off limping, and I don't think he came back in. I don't know what the update is on that injury, but you know, that would be a huge loss if he can't play this week. But hopefully he'll be okay and be back this week. But he's a great lineman. I know actually Auburn and a couple of schools had been looking at him when he was at Dade County as a 10th grader. So I'm excited about this Fort Payne team, and you know, they'll be playing a good Arab team this week, and you know, it'll be an exciting ball game. So, but I tell you what, Fort Payne is loaded. So our next game is Fife at Cleveland. Man, I tell you what, you know, Fife. Of course, what can you say about Fife? You know, they're the defending state champ. They started out a little bit slow against Geraldine. You know, they didn't score till about 8 minutes left in the first quarter, which is kind of odd for Fife. But once they got rolling, man, they were rolling. And I think, you know, the Cleveland team, we've talked about them, man, they got a great quarterback. And I think this could be a very good ball game. This probably, and I haven't looked at the schedule, but this might be the toughest game that Fife will have on the regular season this year. So it's going to be an exciting game. You know, Dylan Kilpatrick rushed for 225 yards. Had a great football game. So what's your thoughts on Fife and this Cleveland game this week?
Well, Cleveland's coming off a big win last week, and you talk about Dylan Kilpatrick. I mean, the kid has a motor. Like they say, he never stops. He never gets tired. But unfortunately for Fife, their quarterback Will Mashburn tore his ACL last week. So he's going to be out for a good while. They're going to have a 10th grader step up. His name is Seth Benefield. Now, I talked to some people from Fife, and I was like, well, nobody really made Fife throw the ball last year because their rushing game was just incredible. But they said one of the reasons that Mashburn was so important is because he was sort of a field general. He got everybody lined up, made sure everybody knew what they were going to do. So I looked for this 10th grader. He's got some very big shoes to fill, and he's going to have to step up. Because, anything less than a state championship run for this Fife team is a disappointment.
Oh, absolutely. Well, our prayers go out to Will Mashburn. I know it's disappointing when you get hurt and you're going to miss the rest of the season. And again, he is a great quarterback, and he is a junior, so he will be back next year. And I'm glad that he will be. But I know Fife, that's devastating to them. But anybody with the last name of Benefield coming in at Fife, I guarantee you they're going to be ready to play because, that is Paul Benefield's son, and I'll tell you what, he will have him ready. And, with this Fife team, I'll tell you what, they just reload. They just bring, one may get hurt, but they just bring another one in. We saw that with the Kilpatrick kid. They probably, Austin Stiefel last year, one of the best backs in DeKalb County or in Northeast Alabama or state of Alabama for that fact. And, he graduates, and this Dylan Kilpatrick steps in, and they haven't missed a step. So, this is going to be a great football game. If you don't have anything to do Friday night, man, this would be a great game to go watch. So, I encourage you to, go out this week and check out that Fife game if you have the chance. Our next game is the Mountain Valley News Game of the Week, and it's North Sand Mountain versus Plainview. Boy, I tell you what. Man, Plainview had to open up with, when we talked about this, Glencoe made it to the semifinals last year, and man, did Plainview struggle. I don't know, that's, if you had to pick a game to open up with, that's probably not one I would pick. But, they've got a chance this week to get back on the winning track. North Sand Mountain, they took a tough loss against Dade County. Of course, Dade County usually is a very good football team, and I think they got beat 26-0. But talk to us about this Plainview game.
I actually covered this game. I was on the sidelines, and Plainview just struggled to get any momentum going throughout the whole game. It seemed like if one thing went wrong, everything went wrong. But this team didn't give up. They ended the night with 17 rushing yards for the entire game. But they did have 103 passing yards from quarterback Ben Williamson. He really showed some leadership out there. I believe in this kid. He ran the ball hard, especially for a quarterback. He's more of a passing type quarterback. But when it came down to needing 2 or 3 yards, they called on the quarterback up the middle, which is something strange from around here. But
yeah.
They're going to have to bounce back from this. North Sand, you talk about North Sand and Dade County. Throughout the entire first quarter, North Sand was tied with Dade County. And then Dade County, they ended up running like a 60-something yard kickoff return back to open halftime. And Dade County scored on them, but it was very spread out. If North Sand gets their offense running, this team might pull off an upset.
Yeah, this is going to be a great game. Like you said, Plainview struggled. There was a couple of bright spots. I know Will Kirk had an interception. He's an all-state defensive back from last year, and you'll see this kid. He's tough, and he'll have several more interceptions as the year goes on. Also, Cade Willingham stepped in and had an interception. It was just a tough night. They were down 43-0 before they ever put a point on the board. And so, I think though they've got a chance this week to get back and get back on the winning streak here and start playing like we're used to Plainview playing. So, it's going to be interesting. We've broke these games down. We've talked about them, and so it's time for us to start picking. And we're going to do something a little bit different this year. Man, we've got some great sponsors of our game and of our magazine. And so what we have decided to do, we're going to bring in one of our sponsors each week and let them be our guest picker. Well, this week we've got Jonathan Phillips. He is the assistant director for the DeKalb County Tech School. And so we're going to ask him to step in here, and he's going to be our guest picker this week. And we're excited to have Jonathan here. How you doing, Jonathan?
I'm doing great. It's
good to see you.
It's good to see y'all. It's great to be here.
Well, tell us a little bit before we start picking. Tell us a little bit about the Tech School and what's going on there. So.
Well, the Tech School, as you can see, is growing by leaps and bounds. We offer 8 programs that are nationally or internationally recognized. We've had 2 back-to-back national medalists 2 years. We're the only school in the state of Alabama that was able to accomplish that. So we've got a lot of great things going on. It's open to any student in the 11th and 12th grade in the DeKalb County school system and Fort Payne City Schools.
Okay, well that's great. Jonathan has done a great job at the tech school, and one of the things I think I noticed in our paper last week or week before last, I think you guys have won like 38 national championships or something like that.
We've won 38 state
championships,
championships and numerous national medalists and one national championship.
That is great. That's great. Well, y'all have done a great job, and we appreciate you guys sponsoring this show and sponsoring our magazine. And we're at the point now. This is where it gets fun. We're gonna do our picks for the week, and so we're gonna start with you, Jonathan, since you're our guest. Our first game is Sylvania at Pisgah.
Well, I believe I'm going to have to go with the Rams of Sylvania. I look forward to this to be a great game, but I think Sylvania is going to bounce back from last week, and they'll take Pisgah.
All right. Logan, who you got in this one?
I'm with him. I'm going with Sylvania. I feel like Roebuck, he's having a great year so far. I think he's going to build on that. He's going to hold on to the football this week. I look for Sylvania's defense to step up.
I'm going with Sylvania too. I tell you, man, tough loss last week, like we said, but I think they'll bounce back this week, and I'm looking for big things out of this Sylvania team this week. With the defensive coordinator Nick Ledbetter there, he'll get that defense going and get rid of some of these turnovers. And this Sylvania team is going to be tough. Our next game, Jacksonville at Crossville. Jonathan, who we got in this one?
Well, I'm going to go with the guys from Jacksonville. I feel like they're just a little too much for Crossville this week. I love Crossville. Used to coach baseball down there, but I've just got to go with Jacksonville this time.
Logan?
Crossville's having a tough year. We talked about it's been a really long time since they won a game. And I feel like when they win their first one, they're going to build off that. But I don't think it's going to be this week. I'm going to have to take Jacksonville.
Yeah, man, I would love to pick Crossville in this game. Last week I did pick Crossville, and I really thought they would beat Douglas, and they played a great game and had chances to win it. But I think this Jacksonville team will just be too much for them this week, so I'm going with Jacksonville. Next game, Collinsville at West End. Jonathan, who you got in this one?
I've got West End on this one. I believe they'll just be too much for Collinsville.
Logan, what do you got?
Talk about Collinsville. I know they went 4-6 last year, and talk about their coach sandbag and not let us know how good they really are. I feel like they're going to do a lot this season, but I feel like West End's speed's just going to be too much for them. They're not ready for it this early in the season, so I'm going to have to pick West End.
Yeah, I'm going with West End too. I noticed they beat Susan Moore last week, and I think this Collinsville team has got a chance to win some games, but I think this probably won't be one of those weeks. So I'm picking West End. Our next game is Galesville at Ider. Who you got in there?
I'm going with Tinker's boys from Ider. I believe that they're going to be able to take care of Galesville, the visitors and the players from Lookout Mountain. So I'm looking forward to this game. I think Ider takes care of business.
Logan?
I'm going to have to agree with him there, too. I feel like Ider's a great football team this year. They're going to continue to get better. They improved a whole lot last year, and they're improving off that this year. So I'm going to have to go with Ider.
Absolutely. I'm going Ider. I'll tell you what, Brent Tinker I've bought into this Ider football, and I'm going all Ider this week. Our next game, Geraldine versus New Hope. Who you got?
I'm going to go with the local. I'm going to go with Geraldine. I'm going to go on a limb. I think Geraldine's going to bounce back from that tough loss against Fife last week. They're going to come in, and I believe they're going to come out with a win.
All right. Logan?
I'm picking New Hope this week. I feel like the Browner quarterback, he's going to sit back in the pocket. I don't feel like Geraldine is a team that's really known for their pass rush. And if you give this kid time, he will make the throws. So I'm going to have to go with New Hope.
Well, I'm going with New Hope, too. I think, this was a tough game for me to pick. I actually leaned Geraldine all week, and then at the last minute I changed and decided to go New Hope. They are playing at New Hope, but I just think New Hope with the passing attack is probably a little too strong for them. So I'm picking New Hope. Our next game, Coosa Christian at Valley Head. Who you got?
I've got Valley Head. I think they're going to bounce back from the game against Ider last week. It was a tough loss for them. They're going to come in and do very well against Coosa Christian.
All right, Logan, what do you got on this one?
I'm also going to have to go with Valley Head. They lost to Ider, but we just talked about Ider. They're a great team. They have a great coach. There's no shame in losing to that Ider team because that Ider team is going to surprise a lot of people this year.
Absolutely.
So I think Valley Head's going to bounce back.
Yeah. I'm going with Valley Head too. I think Coach Graham will have them ready this week. They'll come back from that loss, and I think you'll see a big victory for Valley Head this week. Our next game, Fort Payne versus Arab. Who we got in this one?
I'm looking forward to this game this week. I think Fort Payne, Coach Ellis is going to have those boys ready, and they're going to come in and take care of Arab.
Logan?
we talked earlier about how great this Fort Payne team's going to be, and I feel like it's all because of their rushing game. I don't feel like anybody around here is going to be able to stop this rushing game, and I don't think it's going to be ARAB either, so I'm going to have to go with Fort Payne Wildcats.
All right. Our next game, well, I guess I need to pick, don't I? I'm going with Fort Payne too. I tell you what, I bought into this program, with the players they got back this year. If they can stay healthy, I think they'll make a big run. So I'm going all out with Fort Payne this week. Our next game, Fife versus Cleveland.
I'm going to have to go with Fife. I can't go against my alma mater, and so I'm going to pick Fife in this one.
All right. Logan?
Talk about Fife. I know Mashburn, he's got the torn ACL, and that's horrible. And hopefully he'll bounce back from that and be back next year. But like you said, the guy that's coming in is Coach Benefield's son. And if there's one person I want to step in at quarterback, it's going to be Coach Benefield's son.
Yeah.
I don't feel like anybody's going to stop this state championship team this year. And I know Cleveland won big last week, but I feel like Fife's going to be too much for them to handle.
Yeah. I'm going with Fife too. This probably, in my opinion, will be the best team that Fife will play this year. But I think Fife is just too strong with their running game and their defense. So I'm going with Fife. Okay, our next game is the Mountain Valley News Game of the Week. It's North Sand Mountain versus Plainview. Who you got in this one, Jonathan?
I've got the Bears. I just can't go against Plainview. Can't go. I've coached a bunch of these guys that's playing on this team in baseball. I just can't go against Williamson and Martin and Kirk. So I'm picking the Bears.
All right, Logan?
This is actually a really hard one for me to pick. But I'm hoping that Plainview's going to bounce back this week and get that rushing game started because that's what Plainview's known for. So I'm going to have to go with the Bears over the Bison.
All right. I tell you what, this game, normally I would say Plainview is going to blow North Sand Mountain out. But I think this North Sand Mountain team, with the starters they've got back, they'll make a ball game out of this. But I tell you what, they're playing at Plainview, coming off of a tough loss, and they're going to want to show, hey, we're a better football team than we played last Friday. So I tell you what, I got to go with the Mighty Bears this week, and I'm thinking they'll pull off the win this week. So, all right, guys, we have picked the games, and it's going to be an exciting week of football. We got college football, high school football, and I'm excited. I can't wait to see the games, and we'll be back here next week, and I hope you guys will come back and be with us as we break down the high school football, and pick the winners again next week. Hope you guys have a great week, and God bless each one of you.